Sit up straight and tall. Presence is not something you intend. It's something you allow. You already are a manifestation here. You are already here. Your body's already present. And your mind is what goes in and out of phase, not your body. So in this next minute or two, just let yourself arrive in the room. Take in the fact that this class, our work, is humanity disguised as yoga. It's humanity connecting. It's not just community. You are our tribe. Take a second and look around. This is a tribe. This tribe is happening all over the world. They're not quite as established as this. By the way, one of our scholarship people is from London. Where's Joe? So stand up, Joe. So she came from London. She's here from London today, right? But this tribe, this is the center. At the center of Mind Body Solutions is an act of humanity. And the humanity, really simple. It's really simple, right? It turns out that in a yoga pose, you are rising and falling. In life, in yoga, you are rising and falling in every moment of every day of your life. An asana is a reflection of this existential truth, right? And right now, like for example, Chris Becker's here, Chris right here, right? He just rolled 2 weeks ago. He rolled his bi-ski and spiral fractured his shoulder. This dude right here, he's the guy that showed up at the very first yoga class I ever taught in 1997. He's been with me since 97. He spiral rolls. He's in a lot of pain. He's in more pain than I expected for 2 weeks out, so a little bit bummed. So I had Antonella, who's a oncologist for animals at the University of Minnesota. She's a professor who had a baby in the last year and a half that we used to take pictures of her. And she hasn't been here with us for a while, so I had her put her hands right by Chris's shoulder and on one of his opposite knees because he's in so much pain, he's closing away from the outer edges of his body in order to deal with the extent of the pain. And so we had this oncologist. By the way, to be an oncologist for animals, can you imagine how cool she must be? Right? The heart she must have. Yeah, she shows up as becomes part of the tribe that you decide to be a part of now. We're all over the board. We all have stories in the room. We all have stories in the room, right? And that's why we're here. We're here because it matters. We have another student now. So Paul, the good thing about Chris is falling a little bit with his injury. He's an incredibly deep, undaunted person, and he's rising. We have another guy, you guys, and some of this is going to be a shock, especially people in our Monday night class. Bruce Kramer, you saw him in there. He's leaving now. He's at the end. I said my goodbyes on Friday, right? And so, but I want to read you a text. So we're rising and falling. This community, if we acknowledge that we're rising and falling in every moment, the humanity between us will actually deepen. So this I get from Ev last night at 12:43 a.m. Bruce managed to stay lucid and talk to each and every one of the people who came to say goodbye. Some repeats from yesterday. We didn't subject him to the midline, a kind of IV that I talked him out of, keeping him comfortable with oral morphine. Here's the line. I am singing and telling him stories to ease him into the next big adventure. Thanks for being there yesterday. So we teach caregivers from around the world that we've got living and dying happening, rising and falling, and how we support each other. Instead of just saying and giving each other tissues, we guys just find a partner and sit back to back. Will assistants put their hands on the shoulders of Bob and our students here? Just sit back to back for a second. Support each other's spine. It turns out that when you support each other's spine, not your head, when you let in, we teach caregivers, you guys, how to give and receive simultaneously, how to receive support, right, and give at the same time. So for those of you that know Bruce, we're aching pretty good right now, right? The irony of him leaving, this launching, it's about the story, right? I hope that the adaptive yoga class, you understand, Bruce Kramer was the Dean of Education and Counseling at the University of St. Thomas. He has a book coming out on Wednesday. The book release party's on Wednesday. He's probably not going to make it. He believed in you guys in this class. He actually believed in the voice. He was a latecomer to the Party of Disability. And because of that, he could see it better. And he came through our midst and absolutely believed in its transformative effect. Wants the teaching of our adaptive yoga to be studied by his colleagues. To make it, he was a school principal, educated principals a lot. He wants it to go everywhere. We're going to keep doing the work. Right? So as we allow that both Bruce is falling and rising, Chris is falling and rising, you're falling and rising, and the yoga poses we're about to do are falling and rising. Hope and sadness are very deeply related, and they're happening when you show up all the way. When you let your story become part of the story of Mind-Body Solutions, there will be transformation. It will be both fulfilling and sad. Jeff Reeby, one of our students, remember the guy that died during playing pond hockey? It was his brother, right? Everyone has a story in this room. Let in the support. Support someone else. Soften your jaw. We're going to start practicing yoga and start the rising and the aliveness part. But you are falling too, and in fact, every pose needs to have more of a base. So it turns out that the sensation that exists between our spines is actually transcendent. So move, if you can, about an inch away from each other, but keep the connection between your spines. Stay open. Don't touch each other. Move apart. Keep the connection traveling through space. Stay open to the support that is around you. You can probably still even feel their warmth. Let it in. Let it help your chest rise. Again, allow for the simultaneous falling and rising that is at the core of every yoga pose. We're going to start putting that to action more and more. All right. Go back to your spot. Time to do more yoga. One of our lines we teach to caregivers is support the spine, ease the mind, right? Everyone stand up if they can. So the ability to move in multiple directions at the same time, it's one of the core principles of yoga. We call you have to go down to go up. That's what we teach yoga teachers from around the world, by the way. What we didn't mention to you is that we have students and teachers from around the world now. We're wanting to live stream classes around the world starting this next year. That's what Kiss My Asana is going to be. Like your money is going to start going towards. And it's going to be as simple as grounding your feet and stretching up through the top of your head, broadening across your shoulders, right? So one of the very strange insights, so your feet are more closer together. One of the very strange insights, so if you're sitting in a wheelchair, you're grounding your feet into the foot pedals, you're making your sits bones more like knives, right? So you're hitting down and you're stretching up. And you're going broaden. You're trying to fill the vessel from inside to out. These are sensations that are accessible to everyone, even if standing is not. Right? So you soften your jaw on the inside of your mouth. So you're going in multiple directions, right? But you also want to be integrated with the space around you. Every yoga pose is a balancing pose. The goal of yoga is not for you to do more complicated yoga. It's actually, take your head back a little bit. It's actually to connect you to the space around you. Now, this is literal. Everyone that can, come a little bit forward like you're going to fall forward on your face, but don't fall forward on your face, right? Do you feel more or less connected to the space around your body right now? Less, right? Now go behind the balance point, but don't fall backwards. Do you feel more or less connected to the space around you? Less. Come on the four corners of your feet. Be balanced. Notice that when you're balanced, you're more connected to the space around your body. This is the fundamental insight of yoga, is that you're supposed to be able to move complicate your movement and stay connected to the greater whole. That's possible. That's what asana is. So for this next minute, you're staying in Tadasana, you're lifting up, you're broadening across the shoulders, you're stretching out the top of your head, but you're making sure, even while you're full of effort, you're making sure that you don't lose the suppleness and the beauty of being connected to the space around you. You are in the balancing pose. You are in a cosmic soup. This is literally true. This is what the reality is. Our minds are afraid of this truth. This is the existential condition. Our minds are afraid of how connected we are. It only seeds absence. So we rise and we fall. Inhale and take your hands up over your head. Extend up. Hit down through your heels at the same time. Roll the tricep towards the ear, but don't turn the palm up behind you. So right now, hopefully the assistants are helping some of our students, right? So you're stretching up. Go beyond your fingertips. One of the things you learn in yoga poses is that your poses don't end at the terminus of your body, right? They actually help you. Lord, we just help Nikki for a second, right? So you extend up and get bigger and breathe. Now, it would get way harder. This effort would get way harder if you weren't balanced on your feet. Like if you weren't staying centered on your feet, this effort would get way harder. Good, and then take your arms down. Now, jump or step your feet wide, 3.5 to 4 feet wide. Students here, take your arms wide. Now, one of the things we do, your arms are wide, so you're getting, remember the game Light Bright? Do you ever color with light? Put light bright in your ankles, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, your elbows, your wrists. Don't forget that the light is actually in space, though, right? It's in space. Your head's a joint, right? It gets in the way a lot. Try to let there be light in your head. Lift your sternum a little bit. Now, one of the things we'll teach, we want you to activate the more grounding sensation. So people that are standing up with their arms and legs fully wide, your feet are pointed straight ahead, but you're rolling your thighs away from each other. Can you feel how that makes you work your legs? Right? That's part of the grounding sensation. Take your arms wide. So that should be helping you have your arms wide. Now turn your palms up, come up over your head, right? Extend the whole time, be grounding through your legs, go beyond your fingertips, be in the space, don't lose your side body. Don't lose your side body. Your side body's all part of this pose. And breathe. Breathe for the whole kitchen sink. Allow the fact that you are unified with the universe even though you can't see the connection with your head. Your spine is already connected to the universe. It's already part of the space around you. Your head starts to suffer when it doesn't realize that. Good, and then take your arms down. So with the idea of taking your arms wide, maybe you guys can just see up here for a second. So take your arms wide, Joe. Right? Chris, come on behind. So you guys just worked your legs. Come over here. Come on, Chris, come in front. Right? You guys worked your legs. I had you have your feet pointed straight ahead, roll your thighs out away from each other. That made the work in your arms get more unified. So Joe's going to have his arms wide, but Chris is going to push in on his knees. So we're actually creating the sensation of grounding that you got by having your feet straight ahead and rolling your thighs out. We're creating that sensation in his arms, in his body, so his arms get lighter, so we can, with more freedom, stretch from the center of the collarbone out through the center of the wrists. It's sensation that's transcendent. Yoga poses discriminate. Yoga doesn't, right? So if you can start teaching the sensation and realizing the sensation of what you're learning, that's how we're teaching across the world. So when Chris moves off of his knees, right, he's going to get way heavier. Right, good, and then take your arms down. So let's prove it to each other. So stand with your feet back together. So just come and turn and watch for a second. Take your arms up over your head. We're going to partner up and do this, right? So just watch for a second, right? Come on and come closer, right? So actually, Amy, why don't you come here for a second? Of course, I picked someone with a beautiful thing on her wrist. Not very smart. There it goes. All right, so what we're going to do is you're going to let each other suffer for a second. You're going to roll the tricep towards the ears. This has done a lot of yoga. This body's done a lot of yoga. Look at that, man. That's freaking beautiful. That is a lot of chaturanga. Right? And it actually gets in her way a little bit. Right? So the person you're going to suffer, you let him suffer, tricep roll towards the ears. You're going to come up and lightly, watch how Amy just lightly with one finger and one thumb grabs the wrists, You're going to feel a downward connection and a lightness happen. She's not going to suffer as much through here. By the mind knowing where the joint is in space, your life's going to get easier. You're going to feel a dropping and a rising simultaneously. You are going to live the story of existence, falling and rising at the same time in a simple pose. And now when the person goes away, you're like going, oh my God, and your legs better work more, right? This basic truth is transcendent. You can teach it to anybody. All right, partner up. Take your arms up over your head. Let the person suffer a little bit. When we teach this to caregivers, they try to help too soon. We don't want you to help too soon. So some assistants, some yoga teachers that are used to this, come over and help over here. Chris needs some help, right? Some people that train with us, come on up, right? So you're stretching up, tricep towards ears, hitting down through your heels. You're doing freaking yoga. Don't think you're not doing yoga, right? Go beyond your fingertips, open your palms, hit down through your heels. It's freaking yoga, guys. You got a problem. He might have to go down, right? He's tall. He's a tall drink of water, right? All right, and now the person comes in and lightly touches the wrist with the thumb and the index finger and just grounds. You don't have to squeeze. Don't scare them. And notice you feel that dropping right away, but your arms feel lighter. That is the rising and falling that is inherent to humanity right there. That's the truth we're not sharing enough. That's why I'm not afraid that Bruce is dying right now, because I know we're rising and falling. Right? We're going to support his family. We support our tribe here, right? Good. And then when the touch goes away, your arms are going to get heavier. Boom. And now you got to learn the asana. You got to work your legs. You got to breathe. Go beyond your fingertips. Now you owe a karmic debt. Take your arms down. Take your hands up. Other person, right? Roka, get up here. Raka, yeah, come. We need some people up with Chris and Nikki, and I'm calling on people for God's sakes. And so they're suffering, right? Tricep roll towards the ear. You're hitting through your heels. You're moving in multiple directions at once. You're broadening across the back ribs. I didn't tell you to touch the wrists yet. You're a pathological giver. Let go, right? Let go. Okay. You let him suffer a little bit. A lot of rib cages are popping out. Remember, arching your back and getting taller are not the same thing. Okay, and then reach up after they suffered a little bit. Touch the wrists, show them where they are in space. Notice the ease, the dropping that happens. And then from the falling, rise up like a phoenix right through your body. Realize that action, the source of all action, is actually relief. It's subtlety. It's not so much effort. Good. And then slowly release and try to maintain that sensation. You're going to have to work your legs, you work your sits bones, work your feet. That's the part of the mind-body relationship we're not interacting enough with. Take your arms down. Okay, jump or step your feet wide. Go back to your spot. Take your arms and legs wide. Bigger in space. Again, so under the adaptive students are getting their arms held up underneath their upper arms so they can get more ease. You're trying to keep your feet pointed straight ahead, roll the femur bone away from each other, and you're trying to figure out how to take your legs wider. We're trying to figure out, how to work your legs and actually have the energy travel through your torso to your arms. This is what standing poses are doing. They're showing you how your arms and legs are in relationship to your spine, and then what poses do is they change gravity. Right? So turn your left foot in, right foot out. So we're just going to do a Trikonasana right here. Right? The students, so if you're in a wheelchair, take your right hand outside your left leg and do a twist. Right? So you press down so you're pressing down to the inner edge of the front foot. You're drawing awareness up to the hip socket, drawing a line across your pelvis, pressing weight to the outside of the back heel, making sure you're still doing light bright in your joints, right? Because as soon as you do light bright in your joints, you get lighter, right? Your breath gets better. Some of you are ready to work. You're loaded for bear. You're waiting to do the pose super hard, but I'm challenging you to soften and work, soften and work. Now you're going to change gravity. Inhale on an exhalation. Come on down into Trikonasana. Ground, never pass an opportunity to ground. By the way, there's not more yoga happening on the floor, just so you know. So you can do this sitting down too. This is great, yep. Now, rotate the belly up towards the ceiling. Why? Right? Well, that's what you guys are doing now up here as you're twisting. You're rotating and rolling your chest open as you're grounding down through your sits bones and your feet. Right? You're rolling your belly up towards the ceiling. Why? Because I want all of your joints to receive equally from your spine. Right? All of your joints need to receive equally from your spine. Right? You're okay. Breathe. Breathe for the whole kitchen sink. Is that front leg working, for God's sakes? I'm looking right at you. Can you feel my voice coming right at you? I think your front leg could work a little bit more, right? Yeah, I'm not calling you by name, but I will. Good. And then come on back up. Turn your feet straight ahead. Take your arms down. Take a break. Put your hands on your hips. Pretend you're mad for a second. Don't be mad. You put your hands on your hips to actually lighten your presence. Moms, when they get mad, they put their hands on their hips to yell. It's because they're grounding, but the grounding should lead to a rising. Right? So you put extra reference around the base of your spine, it grounds. It shows you the rising. So there's a rising and falling even here. It's literally the existential reflection. That is what's happening across a whole lifetime. As we age, as we have ailment, all these things. And if you try to just rise, you're going to suffer. If you just let yourself fall, you're going to suffer. Inhale, take your arms wide. So you're grounding down by working the legs more. You're rising up through the limbs. And then you're fanning your life force with your breath. Inhale, exhale, feel bigger in space. Now turn your left foot in the other way. Which way did I? Left foot in, yeah, whatever. Right foot in, left foot out. Get bigger, get wider, and don't lose the light bright in the joints. So the students up here are needing to try to have light bright, right, in the joints. Ground down through the front leg, drive energy up from the kneecap to the hip socket, press weight through our room in the back heel, but make sure your torso is delivering the energy to your arms. Make sure your arms is delivering energy down to your legs. Now the yogis just make things harder. They think, oh God, this seems too easy, let's make it harder. Inhale, on exhalation, come on down to Trikonasana. So now you're going to change gravity. Over here, right? I'm going to show you in a second again, Sue, okay? Rotate the belly up towards the ceiling. Again, you're rising, so the people in wheelchairs are twisting. It's wider stance if you got a Kelly Green tank top. I'd be way wider, way wider, way wider. You got a flow practice, but we're not doing a flow practice now, right? Breathe and extend and try to open. Now remember, are you working so hard that you're disconnecting from the space around you? Are you forgetting to be in space, right? Because your effort is making you work too hard? Good. And then come on back up. Turn your feet straight ahead. Have a seat down if you can. Sue, will you do it again? Yes. So you can see better, just want to have you look at Sue over here, right? So Amy's one of our core faculty, right? She and I are the ones that teach in healthcare all the time. So you're going to come over to the side. Do what you guys were just doing. Right? So notice how Amy gets in position. Like her spine actually starts to mirror the other spine. Do you think the teaching is just in Sue's moving? Or is some of the teaching coming from here to here? Of course it's coming from here to here. Of course we're interconnected, and the universe is actually, we're way more connected than we think, right? Did I mention that we are doing humanity disguised as yoga poses? That's what we do, right? And she's raising up, and now before, she's already fixed her pose, damn it. I was going to have her, she was sticking her head way back like this. Her head was way forward. You see how she just, come forward, do it wrong, right? Like, that's heavy. That's crappy. That makes her work harder too. She opens, she extends, she grounds her legs. You see how it starts to travel through Amy too? Right? That's at our adaptive yoga program. That's it. We actually share yoga. We don't just teach yoga. And then come on back up. So she needs to go the other way. But that's the big insight. You share yoga, you guys. You don't do yoga as much as you think. All right, downward facing dog. Hands and knees. Shoulders in front of the hands slightly in front of the shoulders, hips slightly in front of the knees. Feet up hip width apart. And then come on up, downward facing dog. We're going to show some stuff here in a second. Yep. All right. Come on, for God's sakes. You know your heels are not, there's nobody in the room I think that should have their heels down. Check that out. Some dude is telling you that you think your pose is supposed to have your heels down. Walk your hands further out. Right? Your outside of your hips are supposed to be rising way, way high. It turns out that little things matter a whole bunch in poses. So everyone bring your fingers together. Make your pose absolutely suck. Right? Your fingers are together, not your hands. You just got way heavier, right? You just made your universe way heavier. Now open your fingers, open your palms, and watch the energy go out through the outside of your hips. Right? Continue your spinal energy up to where the ceiling hits the wall. Learn to open your hands and lift out of your wrists. How do you open your hands and lift out of your wrists? You are rising and falling in every moment. So if you can open down to the ground and then rise up out of your wrists. Notice how your tailbone gets lighter, your hips get lighter. That's yoga. Breathe. Good, and then come on down into child's pose. All right, so then what does it look like over here? So, we do it with Joe, whoever's doing it with Joe. So, most of you guys, come on up, look, right? Mostly what you don't realize in this pose is that it's a lot about the space in the vertebrae between your back, right? So if I can get Joe, so stand up, the ones of you that can't see, just stand up and look. Like Joe's forward, he's kind of in the position. Mary Pat is actually mirroring spine with him, grounding her legs, being in her legs. But if I can get a little bit of extension in Joe's back, you see what just happened? If I can get what you guys get in this pose, which is your spine moving and spreading in space, then he's going to be able to push down through his legs more, right? Because the real core of the pose is actually in the spine in downward facing dog. It's that it's spreading and it's delivering awareness through your whole body. That's downward facing dog. You learn to work your arms and legs in order to support the truth, which is multiple directions traveling through the spine at once. That's downward facing dog. So now that you've seen that, do it better. Do a better downward facing dog. And please confront the fact that you might think that if your heels are down, you're doing more yoga. You are not. Right? You are not. Remember, if you overchoose the falling and not the rising, you've missed the pose. If you overchoose the rising and not the falling, you're missing the pose too. It is constantly balancing in any yoga pose. And as you get whatever you're going to get today, the balance between the rising and the falling, between your palms opening to the floor and lifting out of your wrists, the stability of your legs doing the falling, but the spinal energy of raising up where the ceiling hits the wall, right? That's the asana. That you can teach anybody. Breathe. Good, and then come on down to child's pose. So we're lucky because we have a lot of adapted yoga teachers in the room, so we're doing more action with everybody. All right, so what we're going to do, so another thing that's in our DVD, you know, our DVD that we called Beyond Disability focuses on 4 sensations, right? Grounding, sensation of grounding, the sensation of balance, the sensation of expansion, and the sensation of rhythm. Good, and then come on up. So this idea of expansion is like in every position you're in, it's moving from inside to out, right? So it's being able to get bigger within your body. So sit in whatever pose you're sitting in. Let your groins drop towards the ground, right? There's a core action of your life chakra that needs to have the center of the earth. It needs to have grounding. So as you sit here, you're dropping here, you're rising here, and you're learning how to balance the dropping with the rising, right? The effort with the surrender. These aren't just truths about yoga poses. These are truths about being alive, and we need to pass them on. We need to pass them on in elderly care. We need to pass them on. We're coming off of a big program at Gillette's Children's Hospital. We're going to be passing it on to kids that are going through all sorts of hard and lots of pain. These types of truths are what we need to pass on, is how to drop and rise at the same time. All right, so now what we're going to do, because it feels, so this idea of rhythm, how do you share rhythm with people that don't actually get rhythm, right? So we're going to do a couple things that start to feel kind of good. One is, so Liz and Amy, we just come up here. You're going to have one person lay flat and do the feet into feet. Yeah, it's just going to feel good. So now we're going to do the nummy part of the class, right? Then we got to figure out how to translate rhythm into bodies in effort. So Amy, just talk about what you're going to do. This feels great.
And then keeping my legs straight and her legs straight, I'm just going to slowly push in on one leg and then the other. Actually, I'm going to bring your legs a little closer together. There we go. So I'm just pushing in on one foot, then the other, and really push down more toward the heel. So you're not just doing this and pumping your feet, but you're actually
literally bringing energy right into their spine. I'm telling you, we do stuff like this in almost everything we do in all of our training comes out of our adaptive yoga classes, right? All the stuff we do in healthcare, all the stuff we're teaching these sophisticated healthcare professionals are actually coming right out of our adaptive yoga class, right? This feels great. Imagine someone for like Bob when he's out of his chair, or Joe, or someone getting rhythm back into their pelvis, right? It's a sensation that everyone should maintain. How we're going to teach it here is we're going to get assistants to come in on the knees and push one knee in and back and go back and forth. So the movement in the pelvis, right? But I can tell you for Joe and me, this feels like walking. For people that haven't walked in 30 years, right? It's like they get to come home in poses like this, in shared sensation. All right, partner up. One person lies flat. The other person sits up in Dandasana. You put your feet into their feet. And then, like Amy said, a little bit more towards the heel. You start pushing one foot forward and then back. So you're watching into their spine. And they're accepting, and your ability to receive the adjustment is the yoga. There's as much yoga for the person receiving here. You aren't just passive here. You're trying to and you're trying to see if your whole body can move back and forth with the rhythm. So imagine that students like me don't get to do vinyasa yoga, right? And vinyasa, part of its beauty is the rhythm of the practice, of sun salutation, for example. So you're trying to figure out a way to get some of that beauty and that rhythm to somebody in a completely different state. So you're not poo-pooing the flow that I never get to do. You figure out ways to take advantage of what it is, right? Which is constantly changing the rhythm in your pelvis in relationship to the rest of your body, right? Good, and then slowly to be in the center, always honor the center, and then switch. So these are some of the things that might be happening at the stations that are around. Like when you're eating, I'd go to a station if I could do it. And by the way, all of these things that you're seeing now are just things I wish people did to me all the time. Pretty much, that's the mother of invention. God, what would feel good and feel like a yoga pose? Let's come up with that. And our team just starts to figure stuff out. Like we start to figure out ways to share what we're getting from a yoga practice without it being dependent on being able to do all the poses. All right, so then go back and forth and go at a nice rhythm, John. Slow down there, right? So you just are watching them, and you got to let them receive. Remember, you're doing more from the heel. You're trying to help them receive. Back and forth. You're trying to, and watch, and your chest stays open as you watch their spine start to rock back and forth. Pick a good rhythm to it. Be part of it. There's this dumb guy that said, be the change you want to see in the world. It's pretty smart. Good. And then honor the center again. Be in the center. Good. And then slowly release. Have a seat up. Did that feel, that probably felt pretty good, right? Kind of like numb, 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 numb. Yeah. Right? Imagine sensations that, you know, the one thing that happens in acute care is that people forget to help patients feel good. There's a whole bunch of bad things happening, and caregivers don't recognize that if they just come in and say, what do you need? And they put their hands on someone's ankles, and they touch them and say, so what's going on? Just as it being the matter of course, that's what we're not doing. Our parents that maybe are having dementia and losing where their mind is in time. Remember, your mind can get dislodged from time, right? Their body is always present. Touch their bodies more. Touch them more. Don't be afraid to touch your loved ones as they're having their life arc change. That's what I did with Bruce. Bruce was barely verbal on Friday. I just sat there and kept touching his knees, touching his chest. You know what his last words to me were? He mouthed, thank you for all the work. He said it all in one little exchange. Because we were together, right? These are the things. Mind-Body Solutions is not just for yoga, it's for life, right? It's for connection. It's for sharing simple mind-body truths with each other as we go through the suffering that comes with rising and falling in every moment of every day. That's why you're hopefully here. You recognize that yoga's got dimension to it that is way more than the poses, way more than chanting, way more than meditating. All right, so a couple of the people, Liz and Amy, come up again. Right? Go back to back. Right? You got to pick people about the same size. So this idea in chairs, like Chris here, Chris has not had years of not coming forward and backwards on his sitting bones. Right? Something that we take so for granted. Right? This idea of moving back and forth on the sitting bones. Wheelchairs right now are actually tipping us back because they're in love with the engineering of it. Right? And that's driving how people are sitting in wheelchairs. Except imagine if you went through your life sitting back like this. You wouldn't engage in the world as much. You'd be reclined. If you went through your life reclining, you'd be way less effective. But we're not recognizing stuff like that. That's why Mind-Body Solutions exist. So you're going to interlock your arms. This is just going to feel good. You're going to start going back and forth. We're going to help people come back and forth and let yourself open onto their back. Let yourself be supported and supporting simultaneously. Right? And you're gonna go elbows one way, elbows another way, and then add a little bit of swag. Right? I'll have you switch arms, but like do a little bit of the shake and bake. Right? Amy's really good at shaking and baking. Right? She's a bunch of rhythm. By the way, you know how the rhythm started as part of our teaching? I made the mistake one time saying to Joe that he wasn't much of a dancer. Turned out that he was a ballroom dancer before he was injured. So all of a sudden I went, okay, I got to figure out how to create rhythm, right, without him having to have coordinated movement all the time. We learn from our students, you guys. Innovation comes from showing up together. This tribe starts to show up together. We're going to do great things. We've already started. Thank you so much for joining. Partner up. Back to back, support each other's spine. Remember from earlier in the class, we went back to back to support the rawness of knowing that one of our students, one of our tribe is going away, right? Now we're going back to back. Actually, let your head go back. Trust, right? Right? And then go the other, now we're going back to back, not just to support the suffering part, but to actually support the opening part, right? That the opening is the rising. So you're letting yourself be supported and opened. And then find a little bit of rhythm. We'll change the elbows in a second. Do a little swag, man. Nothing wrong with making it, but start simple, right? Add complexity after you've started simple. Fundamental universal principle in asana. Start simple, add complexity, realize it all. And then come back to the center. Change interlock on the arms. Start going in the vertical plane, back and forth a few times. Again, the principle, staying faithful to the don't do the shimmy when you start with the arms the other way. Go back and forth, simple, and then add the shimmy. Complexity is worthless if the simplicity that's inside of complexity isn't realized. That's why more complicated yoga poses don't mean more yoga. So, and then when you're ready to add the shimmy, the swag, the joy, the fun, the thing, right? Move it around, knowing that you're just trying to open experience. And then come back to center, release the arms, support each other's backs. Now, believe me, we got a ton of techniques that we can show and teach yoga teachers, but they're all coming back to a simple thing. I tell people that come through our training, yoga teachers that come through our training, that asana is the third most important thing that happens in a class. And they'll say, well, what are the first two? And I refuse to answer that question. Why? Because it's up to you. I can tell you that the people in this class right now are mostly from Monday night. We are hurting because Bruce is dying. We are losing a great voice. Right? It's the underneath part, the humanity disguised as yoga poses. We want communities, and they're starting. Joe from London is starting to teach workshops in Italy. They're doing one in Italy, they're doing one in Europe, they're starting Adaptive Yoga UK, right? We're trying to get little tribes. They're not as far as we are yet. But if we can show and reveal what's really happening when ability and disability come into the room at the same time, when humanity actually shares without judgment, without sympathy, when you're strong enough not to feel sorry, that's when it happens. And that's when you'll start to learn from people that live with trauma, loss, and disability. They're a big part of our teaching, their voice. So we're going to do Shavasana because Shavasana is a collective experience too. This is just to give you a taste. So go back to your spot. It's all right, so quick, but we got food to eat. We got some other things to do. We got swag to give away, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit in Shavasana, and you know what's going to happen? Chris Kosa, songwriter, musician extraordinaire, is going to start playing after I give you some basic instructions. Because why wouldn't he? It's like having LeBron James in the room and not letting him dunk, right? It's beautiful to receive sound too, but first I want you just to lay flat. I want you to trust the floor. So a returning vet has a hard time coming back and trusting civilians and trusting where they're living, but we can probably get him to start trusting the floor. But we don't have to tell him to trust the floor, we just have him do Shavasana. And we tell him to surrender their weight to the floor after we work them really hard in a yoga class. And we say, surrender your weight to the floor. But I know I'm teaching trust. Trust on the subtle body. Because that's where they're injured. They're injured with PTSD. They don't trust their subtle body to be in space anymore. So you land. You land. You know that the quiet part of you is the connected part of the universe. Let there be space in your joints, in your knees, in your hips, in your shoulders, in your elbows, and your wrists. Soften around the temples, the jaw, the inside of the mouth. Keep letting go. Letting yourself land. Start to bring yourself back. Back to the rising and the falling, the effort and the toil, and the hope. When you're ready, bend from the elbows and place your hands lightly on your rib cage or abdomen, giving yourself boundary as Chris's music still washes over you. There's enough space here for you and for beauty. Don't be afraid to feel. Open and close your eyes a couple times. Let the light in slowly. Bend the left leg, push off. Roll over to your right side if you can. Put your right arm under your right ear. Push off with your left arm. Keep your head low. Gradually sit up. I hope you understand that we are you. You're essential to what this is. I hope you ask 5 people to come next year. I hope that this becomes the event, one of the cool events of the year, where we actually show up all the way. And we move, and we open, and we share, and we eat food. Now we got to talk a little. Chris is going to play a few songs. I think we should listen to a couple songs before we start getting the food. Onward and over, the seasons turn. I'm not letting you go. I'm not ready to go. Stay till the morning shows. After all the people go, I won't deny. When you leave in winter rushes in through the holes in the sky, like lonely hours. Onward and over, the seasons turn. I'm not letting you go. I'm not